Action.
Oh wait, so you're on? Did you go on my live, or is it?
No, we're just filming on your.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure.
The motions I make with my limbs. Breathe in. 1, 2. Move my hips to the groove. 3, 4. Get excited for what's in store. 5. Finesse of the spy.
Thank you so much for zoning in with Zona. This is ZIWZ 77.7, an aimed up podcast vlog. It's a vlog. This is the video version of my podcast, Zoning in with Zona, ZIWZ, on YouTube. So subscribe. Finding and exploring love within the darkness and the light. So, we are about to dive into this interview that Zona Fluff, myself, did with Reese Darko at She Is Darko on the gram. She is a business owner. She has an open mic, Snaps open mic. It is fire. She is a poet. She's a momtrepreneur. She is such a dynamic powerhouse in the Las Vegas art scene. We have this beautiful, beautiful interview where we're talking about faith and grounding yourself in faith and what that looks like. We're talking about meditation. We're talking about metaphysics. We're talking about spirituality. We are diving into the nuances of love within the darkness, within the light, within this 3D experience multidimensionally. I am so grateful for Spacecraft Studios here in Las Vegas. That is the location that we shot at. Much love to them. I'm excited to really embark on this journey of interviewing other beautiful, talented creatives in the Las Vegas art scene through Zoning in with Zona at ZIWZ 77.7. They're going to zone in with me, and collectively, we're going to zone into these nuances of love. We're going to dive and explore the love within the darkness. Dive into and explore the love within the darkness and the light. Thank you so much for coming to Zona's Loveline. So, I'm asking Reese Darko, how does she practice self-love outside of the practices that she shows online? Reese is a beauty influencer, and she is doing so much for the community. She literally is a ball of inspiration. Like, every time I'm with you, I get inspired. And it's fascinating because we're both moms. Like, you just heard Arthur, sweet Arthur, say mommy. And 2020 was just such a life-changing year for all of us. So Reese and I have been friends for a good amount of time. I've been in Vegas for about almost 4 years now. And the whole time I've been here, you know, transplanting myself from Maryland, from the East Coast, now turning into a West Coast girl, befriending Reese Darko the whole time. Everything in our relationship as friends have changed. The relationship that I have with myself has changed. A part of me wanting to, you know, start this Zona's Loveline was to dive into a lot of the understandings and nuances of love that I necessarily, you know, didn't know, or, you know, or was programmed to think differently or whatever from before. And now, learning all that I've learned about me and understanding the different relationships and things that I have with other people, I'm so glad and so grateful and thankful to have the opportunity to bring Reese here to dive into her spiritual self-love practices, and she's open and willing to share with us. Absolutely. And yeah, my voice is shaking because I'm excited, because it's a vision that's coming into life, real life right now. Deja vu is real. Coincidences aren't coincidences. So how do you practice self-love, just to keep it real simple?
How do you practice self-love? This is
you, like Reese Darko, you.
Yes, how does Reese Darko practice self-love? And what I started to say was this journey has fluctuated so much, especially in the time that we've known each other, which I think has been like probably close to like 3 years now, which is kind of crazy because so much has happened, and not only externally, you know, in our own love lives, but also in the condition of the world and how we've grown as artists and how we've grown as moms.
Yeah.
And I think that it, to me, even just remembering to think of myself is an act of self-love, because there have been periods of my life where I have slipped into the routine of normalcy, of consistent work productivity, and forgetting that the productivity with my own growth and my own spirituality and my relationship and awareness of my needs, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, you know, that has been probably the biggest turning point or focus point that I've been developing in terms of just loving myself and remembering, like, hey, I'm a person too, and my efforts should fulfill me, you know, before I start worrying about my job as an artist or curator, a mother, a salesperson, any of that stuff. I have to remember that my first job is to take care of Reese Darko, and that might take many forms. Maybe writing affirmations in the morning, you know, all the textbook shit, maintaining your altar. But for me, lately, it's been even just remembering, like, hey, I can do like a mask treatment, or like do my nails one morning and make time for that, or treat myself to a drink. I feel that a focus on faith. Helped me guide my life in self-love. And I think that's because through meditation and through mindfulness and union of our spirit and body, we realize that God and self are one and the same. And not in a way that is driven by ego or some false delusion of omnipotence, but really just in surrendering to the connection that we have with everything around us. And I think that through that oneness, externally and internally, is how we build our relationship with God, with self, and to be able to lead your life in God's light is to be able to lead your life in your own light. And I wholeheartedly believe that prayer has gotten me through things that I had otherwise succumbed to. You know, there's a difference between succumbing to circumstances that you feel were pressed upon you and imposed upon you, versus intentionally surrendering to the flow of life and receiving the blessings in any form that they come, even in pain, even in hardship, even in lack of luck. You know, like, I used to be someone who believed I was a jinx. I used to say it all the time. I would speak that to the universe all the time. And then it wasn't until it occurred to me that I'm like, all of those. Okay.
Ooh, Mighty Morphins. Okay.
Alright, Farrier. no, he loves Mighty Morphin Power Racers. He's really into the Green Ranger right now.
That's cool.
And so he's surrendering to circumstance, you know, because otherwise, like, Darko from 3 years ago would have been like stressing out, like, my child, I need to like control him. Like, I feel that now I've trusted my environment, trusted myself and my ability to parent through my individual lifestyle and my mission to the community, you know? Yeah, Going back to what we were saying though about like referencing religion, I think for me, because I was raised Catholic, after I defected from the Catholic Church, I feel that I took an interest in the study of many theologies, you know, Yahweh, Allah, you know, God. I think that these are all names for the same entity, the same understanding of self and awareness. And even when I'm praying with Arthur, like, I was just telling my friend this because he's a really good friend of mine who's very like deeply Christian, but also very like modern, where he shares a lot of Christian beliefs alongside Hindu beliefs and Buddhist beliefs, you know, beliefs that aren't necessarily rooted in monotheism, but there is a unity in the oneness of all. And I think that that's something that I have found in many religions that believe in many gods, you know, Egyptian theology, pagan theology, you know, Hinduism. I just think that there is so many different ways to interpret God, and that's why I like to simplify it to just the universe, because I feel that the universe is a multidimensional entity that expands beyond our human comprehension. So for me, yes, I do feel that spiritual practices can take many different forms, and I think it's important for us as humans to constantly be learning different forms of worship, because that's how we learn different forms and different facets of our self-awareness. And whatever name it's under, it's all, in my opinion, you know, the oneness of the infinite shared consciousness, which is God.
Yeah. It's phenomenal, and I'm a person that loves hearing that message. So when people are like, oh, we should all love each other, and the universe is just love, and God is love, and everything's all one love, I love that. I gravitate to that. I'm one of those people that enjoys hearing that all the time. But I see people kind of like getting into their pride, and we were talking about that earlier. I see people getting in their pride and saying, oh, well, it's deeper than that, or it's more than that. And I was one of those people, like, sometimes when, and you were talking about earlier, the productivity and getting into, so deep into work and time, and I look at it as like the robotic 3D world, like being a robot. So when you're a robot and you hear someone say, and it's just tying back to your forum, which is what I wanted to get into too. When you're a robot and you hear someone say, I'm just imagining it in like a video game world, or in like this, you know, Matrix or whatever, and you hear someone say, God is love, and I believe in the universe, and we're all one, we're all connected, it's triggering sometimes, and I see it trigger people. And then I can see myself, you know, if I'm astral projecting or whatever, and I see my 3D self or my robot self or myself that's just too tied into the work and trying to be too productive all the time, and you know, luckily or blessedly or with faith, I don't dive over the edge and succumb to some type of addiction or whatever, because that's what happens to people. But not to go on that tangent. Succumb, but that's the word you were using.
Surrender.
You were talking about that and before. I don't even know if we got that on video, but I love that. But which is what you mentioned here. I'm so glad I got that. Jen was focusing on faith, because when you have those people who are even the skeptics who are within the different practices, like they ask, okay, well, you say all of this stuff and you talk about love and you talk about all of this, but what are you doing? What are you doing behind it? What are you doing? And it's always some snooty cisgender white male who wants to talk about what are you doing behind this. And I even find myself thinking that, well, what work are you putting in? What are you actually doing for the community? You want to protest? What the fuck are you doing? So then I see everything around me on fire. And I'm like, why is everything around me on fire? Because I'm blowing everything around me on fire out. And I have to check myself. And what do I do in that moment when I check myself?
I focus on faith. 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 I
Yes. Focusing on faith, I think, brings everything back to the main message that you can't control your environment. You can only control your own reactions to that environment. And I think when you focus on yourself and your personal individual impacts moment to moment, instead of, you know, holding these unrealistic expectations of perfection and what we feel would define our success, I think that that's really when we're able to become more successful and closer to God and closer to ourselves and the actual mission at hand, which is lead with love. You know that, and it really is. And it seems like it should be so simple, but people overcomplicate everything. You know, with expectations and delusion.
Yeah, I definitely relate to that, and a lot of people relate to that.
I know I'm guilty of it. I think everyone is, you know, and exactly that. You need to check yourself. I think personal accountability. One of my affirmations for this last new moon in Pisces / Aries, technically it was like turned into Aries. But one of my affirmations specifically was psychological accountability. And I say that because I feel that physical accountability is, you know, the checks and balances of talking to oneself, talking to other people, holding each other accountable. Like, I think that's our reflection of our own accountability. But I think psychological accountability is a little bit deeper, to where we have to stay accountable for our perspectives. And like, you know, being someone who suffered with mental health issues, especially with depression and anxiety, like a lot of people who are artists, I definitely feel that it can be easy for us to slip into that mode of negativity, where like we're bombarded with like feelings of failure, comparison, competition, expectations of ourselves, unrealistic expectations, putting out expectations for people for unrealistic goals. That where we blur the line between manifestation and projection or delusion. You know what I mean? And I think that that's something that for me, I have to write in words, because psychological accountability is, hey, this is something that I'm working on. This is something I am progressing with in my art, in my spirituality, in my relationship with my son. You know, psychological accountability.
And that is an act of self-love.
Absolutely.
Literally. And for the people out there, or for me, if I'm thinking about this and I'm rolling back in this video and I need to check myself, and you need to check yourself, for those who are watching this, they need to check yourself. The act of psychological accountability, what that looks like for you may be different, but it is an act, and it has movement, and it is valuable, and it's an act of self-love as well. So, so I wanted to get a little bit deeper and just really quick behind the scenes of the crystals and the sound bowls, and I love all that stuff, but not everybody is me, and I have to remember that, you know. So when you practice that psychological accountability and self-love, and that specific part of self-love, like what you were saying earlier about focusing on faith, and you were speaking, and how you were building on that was through meditation. I love that, because that's a practice. So I'm going to rephrase the question I was going to ask. How do you define meditation? Because that literally is the act of practicing or focusing on faith, right? I would say that it's, I guess faith would be the larger umbrella of, you know, creating unity between the mental awareness and the physical awareness, to where we can surrender the mind and succumb to the body, you know, to where we suddenly become hyper aware of our physical self, because spirituality and emotionality manifest physically in the body. And that's why I think that those two things, you know, really work in tandem, because that is what I feel is the basis of intuition and really just all of that divine feminine power. So I think that the
it's more so focusing on the union between those two, because through that you will find spirit, which is just that awareness of the divine presence within this physical form. You know, otherwise we would all just be mindless cyborg robots, you know, but it's the soul that animates us, which brings that divine presence. As far as crystals and singing bowls and candle work and affirmations, I think that those are all just different practices for the same thing, you know, different tools that we all have at our disposal, and some people use them differently. But I think meditation isn't always going to be sitting on a little pillow in silence with some binaural beats playing in the background, you know. Sometimes it's walking through, I don't know, a rainstorm or a windy day and feeling like that surrender to nature, I think, can also be very meditative. I think taking a walk outside can be very meditative. I think taking a shit can be meditative. I think literally anything which involves some sort of transmutation of something entering your body, being filtered through your physical form, whether mentally or physically, you know, I think that's a meditation, because it's all about intention and your awareness of it. You know, I can put anything that I want to release onto anything and let it go. And I think that just the flow, you know, that like vinyasa yoga, you sync your movement to your breath. You said it earlier, you know, it's all about movement. Progress is intentional. Movement is inevitable. In this linear space, you're always going to be propelled through both space and time, regardless of how still you try to make yourself. I definitely think that walking with intention and awareness of your body as a vessel and as a digestive filter of all things physical, informational, emotional, spiritual, energetic, anything which causes an energetic reaction, I think, can be meditative.
Yeah, I resonate with that.
So I know I said last question, but this other question popped in my mind, and I think this one was more intuitive. How do you define intention? Because how I would define intention for someone who's saying practicality, how do I literally apply this in my day-to-day? Okay, get off your ass and go outside and take a walk, right? And you're saying, this is what I'm gonna do, so your body follows that and you do it. But for you, how do you define intention?
Intention for me, it's all about contributing to the vision. And the vision, the mission, your soul's purpose, these things can all allude to the same thing. And I really feel that it's through meditation that that direction is discovered. But you won't know until you move, right? You won't know until you take that first step. I was just telling a really close friend of mine the other day, you could know your path, manifest your path, see your path, envision yourself on the path, but unless you take steps towards that path, you're never going to get to the other side of where you think that's going to take you. And I think that that's what's so important. It's just maintaining what you believe in that moment, because the vision can change. And that's the thing too. I feel that people can get too attached to a particular version of the vision instead of expanding the vision, allowing the vision to multiply multidimensionally.
Yeah.
Outside of this physical space, to where, you know, I've mentioned this before in previous podcasts, but really exercising the use of the 3 corners of consciousness. So the triangle and the number 3 mean a lot to me, and I feel that the union between these 3 things, right? You have practical consciousness, which is your awareness of like your actions in your day-to-day life, physically being present and knowing like, I understand the physics of this. If I kick this, it is going to move, you know what I mean? But you have that, which is practical thought. Then you have divine consciousness, which is like big C consciousness, right? The consciousness that exists even beyond our awareness of it. It's the universal consciousness, it's God, it's the infinity. And then you have where I feel like humans, aware humans, are most powerful between practical thought and divine consciousness, and that is dream state and manifestation. So that is where we are aware of our power and our ability to call into being whatever it is that we feel contributes to the vision of all three. Not yet, but we're almost done. We're getting there. Hey, can you be patient for me for just a little while longer while I drop these gems? Just a little bit longer, okay?
What kind of gems?
Mental gems. Spiritual gems. Hey. Arthur, come on, man. Don't be a ham. Say hi. At least say hi.
Huh?
Arthur, it's a live transmission
Yeah.
from one. You know, I like to think of ourselves like as cells, you know, and like we're just like a nerve cell, and we're literally transmitting frequencies towards one another. That's how people can sense one another. Go put it back.
I don't want this slime.
If I saw some dirty slime and I wasn't quite sure, I would probably poke at it. At least once and be like, this is the dirty slime I think it is.
Yeah.
It's just like, you can associate that to humans, you know what I mean? This is the dirty slime I think it is.
Literally. And then you get pregnant.